Hello everyone, Stormer One here. Today we'll be talking about the strong severe storm threat that's going to be coming in tonight and into tomorrow morning. We also got some flooding concerns to talk about that would also be tonight and into tomorrow morning. We got another chance for storms on Saturday, and then the big pattern change next week. The pattern continues to stay hyperactive. Got some snow, more rain that could be on the way. We'll get into that, but we'll first check out the watch warning advisory display across the country. Pretty busy out there. Got a lot of winter weather alerts across parts of the West, the Midwest, the parts of the Ohio Valley, the northern half of the Mid-Atlantic, and into the Northeast. All these, purple colors, in these counties shaded in purple are winter weather advisory. You can see here it covers a lot of real estate out there, and you see these dark purple colors in the parts of Pennsylvania, higher elevations, West Virginia, and in the parts of Maryland. Those are ice storm warnings out there. Some areas are going to get an ice storm tonight and into tomorrow, and really most of the winter weather advisories are actually for the ice. Areas up in Indiana and Ohio currently dealing with some freezing drizzle and some light freezing rain up there. We even have reports of some freezing rain in the parts of far northern Kentucky so far today. And we'll get into that here in a minute. Here's a much closer look here. You can see that in counties highlighted in green is a flood watch that is out there. Could be some flooding concerns if you get storms training over some of the same areas. You can see some local high water issues out there. And here's a look at the current temperatures, and we got a pretty impressive spread of the temperatures. If you go into northern Kentucky, a couple of places are actually right around freezing. If you got temperatures that go below 32 degrees, that's considered freezing rain. Any precip that's falling up there right now is considered freezing rain up there, which we can look at radar right now, and you can actually see, if we go right here to the National Service Wilmington, Ohio radar site. Might take a minute to kind of load here, but if we go back to the Louisville site here, there's actually some rain falling up there. It's actually clearing around the Cincinnati area right now, but we got some heavy rain across parts of northern and northeastern Kentucky. If we go down to the Jackson site, you can see here more rain across central Kentucky, even a few rumbles of thunder. And then we pay close attention to our southwestern sky out there, but we also got a warm front that's out there as well, which is actually going to help warm up the temperatures kind of throughout the night. If you go across southern Kentucky, temperatures are generally in the upper 40s into the 50s. We even had some upper 50s out there earlier. And of course, across northern Kentucky, it's in the 30s. So you got basically a 20-degree temperature spread from north to south. So, and if you want to know exactly where our warm front is, our warm front is looks like right about in here is where our warm front is, approximately. It's not going to be exactly that way, but if we look at the current air temperatures, see if I could draw this a little bit better, but it looks like our current warm front is draped across these areas in here. So that's where the warm front is, and the warm front is going to slowly move northward throughout the night as well. And let's talk about the strong severe storm potential. So the Storm Prediction Center is issuing a marginal risk for potential for strong severe storms across most of Kentucky, mainly across central and eastern Kentucky out there. If we go back and look at the tornado risk, there is a very low chance for tornadoes, and they've actually just updated this outlook. Well, the time of making this video, they actually updated the outlook, so there's now a 5% tornado risk. Okay, well, I was not expecting them to issue a 5% tornado risk, but here we are. So let's go back here. Let's backtrack a little bit here. So some of these graphics here are going to start updating. Yeah, here we go. So going back to the regular outlook, so we now have a slight risk for severe weather. That's across parts of south central Kentucky. That includes London, Corbin, Williamsburg, Bowling Green out there. And looks like it's a tornado driven, looks like slight risk. There's that 5% tornado risk. There is that potential for a quick spin of tornado or two tonight. But there's also a potential for some strong wind gusts and even some hail out there as well. So, yeah, what are the chances of that? I was not paying attention to the time at all when starting this video here, but now we got a slight risk out there for severe weather. So, and part of the reason why we have this slight risk upgrade is actually the uptrend that we've been seeing here within some of the latest models. So this is the latest run of the HRRR model. Let's actually start off with the reflectivity first. Let's look at, basically future radar. I'm going to kind of show you guys this first before we get into deep dive into this. So those showers and storms we currently have out there right now, it's going to kind of move out. Some of us will get a break for a couple hours, but here comes this next wave of storms out there. And some of these storms will be elevated. And elevated storms typically don't produce strong winds or even have tornadoes. But they can contain some hail. And you can see kind of along the I-64 corridor, even especially just south of the I-64 corridor, could be some hail producers out there. So we got to keep an eye on that. But as we get into tomorrow morning, you kind of see these some of these cells out here. And you can see here, these cells are not clustered up either. So some of these could be supercells out there. And there is plenty of wind shear to work with. And that's one of the main ingredients for severe weather, is to have some wind shear. And you can see how the severe weather risk dies down as we get deeper into Thursday morning out there. But let's have a deeper dive into this. We've seen a notable uptrend on some of that surface-based instability, which this was one of the main uncertainties with this setup here, is the potential for surface-based instability. How much will we have out there? Well, some of the modeling has been kind of underestimating the instability down in Mississippi and Alabama, which is something noteworthy. And you can kind of see here as that instability moves up to Kentucky, you do have instability generally anywhere from 500 to even pushing 700 joules per kilogram. That's enough for severe weather, especially for the overnight hours during the winter. That's actually some pretty good surface-based instability values that is out there. So that'd be enough to support some strong severe storms out there. And you can see here as we get that daytime heating going again, those instability values start to increase down towards far southeastern Kentucky. Let's look into the supercell composite parameter. So this kind of gives you the combination of the wind shear and the instability out there. And you can see here, as this kind of loads in here, we got some numbers out there. You got numbers as high as a 6, even as high as a 7 out there, if we can get a forecast sounding out there. So this sounding here would be northeast of Bowling Green. So you can see what we're dealing with here. So if we first look off of our hodograph up here, this kind of gives you an idea what the storm structures could look like, and that's a favorable structure for supercells. So storms that can have a hook echo with them, and they can rotate out there. Of course, we got some instability out there. Not a ton of surface-based instability as you would expect, but we got more instability in the upper levels, and that most unstable cape does get up to around 1,000. So that's another thing to monitor closely. Another thing I've noticed here is that downdraft cape, or D cape, is actually getting above 800, which can favor the potential for strong, maybe even locally damaging wind gusts out there. But that could be determined about how much surface space instability would be out there, which in this case here, that might be just enough to get some stronger wind gusts out there. Another thing we've been monitoring is the lap rates out there. Near surface-based lap rates is still very weak, but those mid-level lap rates, it's going to help with that severe weather potential, and especially for the hail risk as well. And we also got drier air in the upper levels as well, so that can also help with the hail risk. And one last, well, not really one last thing. There's more stuff on here. But if you check out the wind bars from the surface up to about 700 millibars, we got wind change of direction with height, which is one of the more important things for your tornado risk. So the winds of the surface is from the southeast. So you got southeasterly winds. But as you go up in the atmosphere, the winds change direction. So you go from the southeast of the surface to several thousand feet above your heads, it's due west. So when you get a thunderstorm updraft in there, it can start to rotate, and that can increase your odds for a storm that could produce a tornado, basically. So now, if the winds were, going at the same direction throughout the entire column of the atmosphere, the tornado risk would be much lower. Another thing is the helicity values. Even the wind shear values are way up there. Like I was saying earlier, those wind shear values will be up there. So definitely no shortage on the wind shear at all, which really helps with your risk for strong severe storms. But you can see here as we get deeper into the morning how those numbers there go down as those instability values do back off. But if we look into most unstable Cape to kind of give you guys a idea of how much instability would be in the upper levels and not so much at the surface, which this is one good way to look into your hail risk potential out there. And you can see there, some of these numbers here have been trending a little bit higher, especially in western Kentucky. Most unstable Cape does get north of 1,000 joules per kilogram, so plenty of elevated instability out there to work with, which can help with that hail risk as well. So overall, the main risk for tonight is going to be strong, maybe even locally damaging wind gusts, some hail. I can now rule out some severe size hail, which is the size of quarters. And I can now rule out a quick spin-up tornado or two out there. So that'd be another thing to monitor. So make sure you have ways to receive warnings since this is an overnight event out there. I know a lot of people are going to be asleep, so make sure you have multiple ways to get warnings just in case the worst case scenario does end up happening out there. So let's kind of move on from the severe weather risk and let's talk about beyond tomorrow. So our storm system will be moving out of here by Thursday afternoon. Some showers may linger into Thursday night and maybe into Friday morning, but that front finally passes through Kentucky by Thursday night. And Friday's a much nicer day. Temperatures, generally in the 40s. Temperatures may be stuck in the upper 30s in northern Kentucky. Counties down towards the state border, or the Tennessee state border, I would rather say, or I should say. Could be in the 50s, low to mid 50s out there. And then we get more precipitation for Saturday. Now, Saturday morning, if you got temperatures going below freezing Saturday morning, and this is a big if, there could be a freezing drizzle and maybe some light freezing rain Saturday morning if temperatures end up going below freezing. The better opportunity for that will probably be across northeastern Kentucky and even parts of eastern Kentucky, mainly in those colder valleys. If you end up going below freezing for temperatures, and if it's rain falling, that's freezing rain. So there's a possibility some of us may get some light freezing rain Saturday morning, but as you get into Saturday afternoon, temperatures should be above freezing. So if you end up getting freezing rain or a freezing drizzle, it's not going to last very long. But it could be enough to put a light glaze of ice on elevated surfaces. So getting into Saturday afternoon, we get a low pressure system that passes through across northern Kentucky. Could have a strong storm or two Saturday afternoon, but the potential is not as big as tonight. Then again, getting more rain out there. And if you combine tonight's rain and Saturday's rain, if I go to the rainfall potential here from the GFS model, it's going to kind of take a minute to load here. So not only you're going to get some showers and storms tonight, but you also got another chance Saturday. If you combine those 2 days, some areas may end up getting 1 to 3 inches of rain by the end of the day on Saturday. And there will definitely be some locally higher amounts out there because medium range guidance cannot detect storms very well. It doesn't take much in account of thunderstorm totals, so don't be surprised if we see higher totals than what this model here is showing. And I can go back to the HRRR model and show you guys the rainfall potential for tonight into tomorrow morning, just to kind of give you guys as an example. So like the American model, shows maxing out probably about 2.5 inches. If I go to the HRRR, which takes into account of the storms, it's a convective allowing model. You can see there's a different story. You can see here it's got rainfall amounts pushing 3, even close to 4 inches towards Ashland. So locally higher amounts will be possible, and anybody that gets these higher end rainfall totals can see localized flooding issues. So that's going to be something to kind of watch out for. And then as we get into next week, so when we start to get that pattern change, something that we've been talking about for a little bit. So let's talk about the overall pattern next week. And really, not much has changed. Really, the only major change is the ridge up towards Alaska is kind of trended closer to the Arctic Circle. But other than that, you still got quite a bit of blocking around the Arctic Circle, which covers, most of Greenland, which that's also important. When it happens, you disrupt the polar vortex. So the colder air is focused farther to the south, which is what you see here. And then at the same time, we're going to have a southeast ridge out there. And with the cold air and the southeast ridge kind of fighting each other, that's where we're going to see a lot of precipitation. And that active storm track is going to go right over Kentucky. So if you look at the 7-day precipitation anomaly, you can really see where your greatest rainfall potential is going to be. And where it's just heavy precipitation in general. And for some areas, it may not be all rain. Keep in mind of that. But these areas in here could potentially see quite a bit of rain over the next week out there. And especially, you can see here even some light blue colors trying to show up in eastern Tennessee, northeastern Alabama, and northern Georgia out there. Could be some heavier rain out there. Excuse me. If we look into the temperatures, the 2-meter temperature anomaly, so this is using the 5-day mean, you can clearly see where your battle zone is. And unfortunately, the battle zone is right over Kentucky. Basically, your battle zone is kind of right in through here. It's where the warm air and that colder air is going to be fighting each other. Now, the core of the cold air is going to be more focused towards the northern plains, the upper Midwest, back towards the Pacific Northwest, while the core of the warmer temperatures, or the spring-like temperatures, is going to be more focused in like the Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama, parts of Mississippi, and of course Florida down there. And these two air masses are going to be fighting each other, and a lot of stuff can happen in between those two air masses out there. You can get a ton of rain. Some areas can get a winter storm out of it. And I think we're going to see both of those things, or maybe one of those things next week. So let's start talking about the rain potential first, because I got some concerns about the rainfall potential. So this is the GFS Ensemble's rainfall mean for the next 10 days. And you can see here, rainfall amounts could be up to 5 inches. Now, some of this does include tonight's rain and Saturday's rain, so keep in mind of that. But over the next 10 days, some areas can pick up around 5 inches of rain as an ensemble mean. Now, an ensemble mean, what it tells you is the confidence level on the higher end rainfall amounts, but also how strong the signal is. Stronger the signal, higher the confidence. And you can see here you got 4+ inch amounts out there, which is quite a bit of rain for the next 10 days. If you were to go to the European ensembles, you see a pretty similar look out there. Some areas 4 to 5 inches of rain. But if you start looking into individual models, like the European model as an example, this gives you a little bit a better idea on the locally higher amount potential out there. So once again, you see 4 or 5 inch amounts, but if you go down towards, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, where there could be some thunderstorms involved, rainfall numbers could be higher, where you got amounts potentially nearing 9 inches in parts of northern Georgia. Now, I'm not saying there's going to be 9 inches of rain down there, but there's a high ceiling for the rainfall. The ceiling is high for big rainfall numbers. And the American model is even more bullish with it. It's got a swath of some double-digit rainfall totals in eastern Tennessee, which would be a big concern. Now, if the GFS is correct, then you're talking about major flooding concerns down there. Now, for this type of time period, I would probably be rooting for more snow than rain, just because of the ceiling potential that the flooding rains can have. Because if we end up seeing all rain next week, we're going to see major flooding problems. And remember, our soils are pretty saturated. We've seen flooding problems back on Friday in parts of southeastern Kentucky. If we see this type of rain next week, we're going to have major flooding problems, which is why you should probably be rooting for snow than rain, which I know kind of sounds crazy to some people, but I would probably be rooting for more snow than rain for this pattern next week. And normally these type of patterns, for this time of year in February, especially where it's La Nina, typically produce a ton of rain. This is pretty typical. Now, the amounts will vary some as we get closer, but we really got to figure out where the heaviest amounts of rain could be. Right now, might be just to our south at the moment. But then it leads to the other question, what about the snow potential? Well, here's the GFS's almost mean for snow. And you can see here, the greatest potential for snow indicated by the GFS ensembles is right about in here. And these are areas, and the mean goes up as high as 5 inches. And from a weather forecaster standpoint or a meteorologist standpoint, that's a pretty impressive signal. That's a pretty impressive mean, especially for down here in Kentucky. Several days away, a mean of 5 inches of snow, that's pretty good. And this gives you an idea that confidence is a little bit higher than normal about next week for a potential winter storm. And the confidence goes even higher when you look off towards the mid-Atlantic in the Northeast, where you may even have some double-digit snowfall numbers trying to show up there. What about the European ensembles? Now, I don't have access to the 10-to-1 snowfall ratio mean, so I can only show you guys the snow depth. But you can see where it likes it. It keeps it north of Kentucky. Now, if the European ensembles end up being correct, we would see mostly rain, and that could lead to big problems for flooding. But what I could tell you guys is that the European ensembles, so far this winter, has been too strong with these storm systems, even the European model itself, which usually tends to have more of a northern track. So that's just something worth mentioning. Now, this scenario is not impossible by any means, but I could probably see us going back south a little bit as we kind of get closer. Now, if you look at the Canadian ensembles, it's kind of between the GFS ensembles and the European, but it's pretty snowy, that's for sure. It's got a higher mean out there as well, and you can see off towards the Mid-Atlantic Northeast, could be talking about some pretty good numbers up there as well. And there was one thing I forgot to pull up. I'm just remembering it just now. If we look into the Weather Prediction Center's snowfall forecast, or winter weather forecasters to say, and go here. So this is day 6. So this is for Tuesday, February the 11th. And this is where we're watching our next potential storm. And I'll show you guys the American model here in a minute. Somehow I skipped over the American model, but... And let me zoom this in here so you guys can see better. And looks like it's not wanting to load for me. I know I've just had a storm come through here earlier, so that might be affecting my internet. But if you guys saw it from earlier, it did have some probabilities for at least 1/4 of an inch of snow and sleet for a decent chunk of Kentucky. It's not very high probabilities, but they do get up as high 30 to 50% in some areas. And that's not really a bad percentage by any means here at this range. And for some reason, nothing wants to load. Well, that really sucks. We'll try one more time. See, I've overshot it. There it is. And it looks like my internet might have went to crap, so I might not be able to show you guys that outlook on this video here, but I'll probably post it on my X account here very soon here. But if I go back to the American model and go to the precip type and rate, so the precip type map, and talk about that storm system, kind of right around the 11th through the 12th. Models have been pretty consistent of showing a storm system around that time. So I'll show you guys the GFS, and the GFS is becoming a little more consistent with this, and I kind of like what the GFS is showing. So their Saturday system, Sunday's not a bad day, but the precipitation starts to come back into play on Monday. Could have some rain across southern Kentucky, maybe have some snowflakes mixing in, but here we go going to Tuesday, and here you see this wave of precipitation coming in, and you can see there's some snow and rain out there, and maybe even some mixed precipitation. Maybe some sleet and freezing rain could get mixed in there. So all modes of precip could be possible early next week, and there may be another little wave that comes through here maybe by the next day on Wednesday, and then it shows another system by around Thursday, and then it shows another one by Friday, and it even continues to parts of Saturday. It's just a very active pattern here. I mean, it's system after system. Like nearly every day next week, we are tracking some type of storm system. Some of these systems could bring, quite a bit of rain. Others may bring a decent amount of snow. But I would definitely keep an eye on Tuesday for a potential winter storm. So we got to keep an eye on that as well, and we'll give more updates on it as we get closer. Last but not least is the Climate Prediction Center. This is the 6 to 10 day temperature and precipitation outlooks. For the temperature outlook, we're pretty much in the battle zone here. Still quite a bit of uncertainty if we're going to be below or above normal. But if you look at the precipitation outlook, it's pretty clear that we're going to see a lot of precipitation. Got pretty solid probabilities of above normal precip. 8 to 14 days, the southeast ridge may try to flex a little bit more, so it might be a little bit milder, but not by much. But then you look into the precipitation, and you can see how precipitation continues to be above normal. And here's the days 8 for 14 probability outlook. So this is for temperatures. Coldest temperatures will stay pretty far away from Kentucky. But look at the precipitation. The heavy precipitation threat is pretty elevated across most of the state. Moderate risk is out there. It's not something you see very often from the Climate Prediction Center. Not much of risk for heavy snow, at least in terms of confidence levels, very low for us right now. And that's risk for high winds out in the west. So regardless if we're going to be on the warm or cold side, the pattern stays active, and we could see a lot more rain at some point. And this even goes into parts of the third week of February, by the way. This is from the 13th through the 19th. So, yeah, a lot more rain could be on the way. But anyways, guys, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you really like my channel, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell notifications so you never miss an upload. If you guys get any questions, you can put a comment section down below. I answer you guys questions. I see you guys in the next video. Goodbye and have a good day.